Imagine being at a convention and going to an interview panel that's just for you. No bustling crowds, no hours-long lines, just you, the moderator, and your favorite comic book creators. Well, this is pretty much that. Miss Jen sits down every week with two comic book creators for a live stream interview about their latest work, and you can ask them whatever you want. It's Talking Shop, Mondays at 5 Eastern on The Experience, Comic Culture and Sales.
What's up, the internet? It's Kyle. I'm back. You got rid of me for 2 hours, but I'm back now, and I'm here with another great friend of the experience, someone who's been on a bunch of times with us because they're one of the coolest people and one of our biggest supporters, and we want to support them, and we love the stuff they do. In fact, they were just on with Miss Jen on Comic Book Shopping Network last night, so I'm going to try and pull out some information that we didn't get last night without having actually watched much of last night. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome in Joshua Starnes, who is the person responsible for Red 5 Comics.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for being here, man. Let's start here. I heard this last night, and so I want to, and you reminded me of it again today. 15 years of Red 5 Comics. I can't imagine doing anything for more than about 15 minutes. How does 15 years happen?
It goes by in like the blink of an eye. It wasn't that long ago that we were celebrating our 10th. It doesn't seem like that long ago that we were celebrating our 10th anniversary. We were talking about let's just get through. We were having a room test. Let's just get through to get to 10. 10 seems like a good year just in case that's the point where time's doing things. But the next thing you know, now it's 15 years. Probably before I know it would be 20 years. Mainly just hold on and keep putting books out 1 month after another, and looking for more titles, and the next thing you know, the time just flies by. But yeah, in November of 2022, it will be officially our 15th anniversary. That will be the month that way back in 2007, Nizo's #1, our first book we ever did, came out, and now the company's grown quite a bit since then. We have probably a catalog of almost 100 titles.
Yeah, it's. I'm having a little bit of trouble hearing you. I don't know if you can adjust your microphone settings on your end at all, but that's the thing that really has impressed me is that Red 5 is a relatively small company, but the longevity has been there. And the product quality is just through the roof. All right. Well, while Josh works on that, I want you guys head over to comicshoplocator.com, find a comic shop near you, and make sure that they're carrying Red 5 comics, because if they're not, you're missing out. Let's try this.
All right, can you hear me now?
Oh, that's
better.
Like a whole world better. Oh,
there we go. All right.
I thought something seemed off.
Just have to play around with stuff.
Yeah, so let me ask you this: how does a company, like I said, Red 5 is a smaller company, you know, it's not uh but you've been around for a real long time now for an independent company. How do you keep the quality like as high as you do? Like I look at a book like Carriers
Mhm.
and it's just so freaking good. What is about what you do that draws in that type of book?
I think it's two things. I think some of it, some of it's just is the taste. There's two of us, based and the co-owner and co-publisher Scott Chitwood, and we do have very different tastes in comics, and what we look for is something that both of us really like. And usually, if it's something that both of us really like, and it may be and frequently is for very different reasons, that is the key. That okay, we found something here, and it's something we think other people will like as well, and that there's real quality to this book, and it's one of the first things that we look for, because it's always been kind of our watchword was more than just having a giant library and having lots of books come out. Although that's something that's going to be changing for the better, I hope. But that I'll talk to. But a lot of it was, first things first. We always wanted Red 5 to speak to quality, and quality of books was more important than quantity of books. And so we would be really spending a lot of time deciding on, do we want to carry something or do we not want to carry something. But I think the other thing that we found, and Carriers is a really good example of it, is that there are a lot of really good books out there in the independent space that are not being picked up by publishers or distributors, and they're not making their ways to comic shelves that really deserve to be, that are good enough, as good if not better than a lot of what you're finding on the shelf these days. And you have some really great creators who deserve to be on those shelves and deserve to be finding audiences. And probably the best thing, the most enjoyable thing I've gotten to do, besides creating my own books, because it's hard to get past the real pleasure of seeing something you created like physically take form. But really close to that is being able to find really good books that deserve to be seen, that for whatever reason have the radar, and that have real high quality to them, and bringing them out and putting them in front of people and watching them, like Carriers, watching them find an audience. That's makes me happier than just about anything related to the comic book business.
So we'll keep it with the you can't vote for yourself rule here. Do you have a high point or a moment in the last 15 years that you look back and go, I can't believe we pulled that off, or I can't believe I got to be a part of that?
For me personally, specifically within physical comics, it was Dark Age #1, and developing that into like something that people were really looking for. And there was a lot of call and a lot of demand for that first issue. I mean, it was been the most popular first issue we've ever done, and to be able to build that organically and to hit that demand, and then I think to produce a book that was as good as anything you'd see from the top 3 publishers, that matched what there was a lot of demand for it, and the book had to be good enough to make it worthwhile for people waiting around to get it, and then it was there, and that was probably about as that's what you always want as a small publisher. That's kind of what you go in and like, this is what it's going to be like, and it doesn't always happen, but when it does, it's really gratifying.
Okay, so on a now you can vote for yourself kind of bandwidth. The box has come out and been really good, and I know that's one of yours. What are you working on as a creator? That either you've been working on and is continuing, or that's coming, that's really got your motor running?
There's two things for two different reasons. There is actually the first thing I ever wrote for comics is actually never, for lots of different reasons, has never seen the light of day. Partly because it's too long, and partly because I would stop to work on something that was ultimately easier to get onto stands. So I've actually completed 3 complete different comic series over the last several years, while my first series kind of languishes in this long-term like development hell while I try to get it finished. And but I've been working with a really great artist that I actually worked with, a guy from England named Simeon Aston, who did the box variant cover for Space Cadets for CBSN. I've been working with him on a look for the book, and finally, and seeing some of the stuff that he's doing has made me really excited. Like, all right, my first work is going to be like the thing that I originally thought was going to be the first book I ever did is finally, and now I'm like, I just, if it's the last book I ever do, I want it to someday get finished and get put in people's hands. And starting to see things coming from it and knowing that it's going to get done. And probably I had I'm not going to say how long ago it was that I actually thought of it and started working on what became the first issue, but it does predate Red 5. So it was a while ago. It's been sitting, partly because it sits for a while and I come back to it, and it sits for a while and I come back to it. But little bits and pieces of it have probably made its way into other series I've done, like Spook and like The Box, because there's things in it where, especially when I didn't know if I'd ever finish it, like, all right, well, I really like this. I'm going to pluck it out of there and put it in. It fits perfectly in this new story and put it in here. So if it ever does get finished, somebody's going to sit and say, look at it, and like if they read through all the stuff I've done in order, go, you have a real thing for like X, or you keep doing Y a lot. You just like spy stories or this. And I go, no, this one just came first. It just came out last, and it just sort of that's just sort of the way things work. But I'm very excited for that to be getting to a point where people will actually finally be able to see it. Although I have said that twice before in the last couple of years, and it's still getting worked on.
Well, I guess that's right. I guess that's the curse of being a project from, somebody like yourself. And I know I have the same thing. I will put my baby aside to get these other things done that I think will get me everything around me a little further ahead. In order to serve the greater good, and then my own thing just kind of sits on a shelf and gets dusty. I've done it in this last year with the experience. I totally get where you're coming from. Shout out to Sean Butler in the comments. He actually has a question, and we're getting there, Sean. The key to a good interview is slowly, is to be slow. So as you forecast 2022, which is your 15th anniversary, you're doing it in a pandemic. It's a weird time, right?
Yep.
And there are new challenges and things facing publishers that 15 years ago you'd have never dreamt of. What are some things that you're doing to kind of prep and make sure that 2022 goes off the way you plan?
Doing a lot, actually, and it's something that we've done off and on, and I should have been doing more of. But we've really, especially over 2021, and it's going to continue on into the future. We've really put a lot more time, a lot more money into marketing, into getting book names out there, letting people know that it exists, trying and building and starting much earlier than we used to in the production process of starting to actually let people know that books are here, and really starting to hit it on multiple different channels, talking a lot more with retailers about books, even in their formative stages. So when they actually start to arrive, and it's time to start with them for shelves, that retailers know what they are, readers know what they are, that there's some demand for them. People are actually coming in and asking for stuff ahead of time, and not just sort of maybe seeing like the one that was ordered for Starnes and going, Red 5 Comics, what's that? And trying to really get the word out, and it's paid real dividends this year, and that's something that there will be even more of over 2022, especially in the pandemic. That connection between and really social media, internet connection between ourselves and readers and ourselves and retailers is more important than ever before, because we can't see anyone face to face. It's getting to be the only way we can really contact or get in contact with anyone, communicate with anyone, and let people know what we're actually working on and what's coming out. And there'll be even more of that. We're going to try to be more visible and because you have to be.
Right. So with that in mind, now let's turn to Sean's question. You've got big plans for your 50th anniversary. You've alluded to it. I think anybody who's ever done anything for 15 years knows that's a big deal. So what can you tell us about what's coming this year that we should be looking out for as part of that kind of monumental occasion?
So one thing I wanted to definitely do for our 15th anniversary was make this our biggest year ever in terms of new content, without sacrificing any of the quality that we're known for. So this will be the biggest release year ever for Red 5 Comics, where we'll be doing 4 titles a month, every month for the whole year, with 12 new series. So a series a month starting every month beginning in January. So 12 new number ones that you can look for. I think that's that will be by far the most we've ever done quantity wise in a year. And within that, kind of speaking directly to Sean's question, you're going to see a wide gamut of lots of different titles, of lots of different types of comics, especially because my point of view is always like, I'm not necessarily looking for one type of comic or another when I go looking for a new series to bring in, or somebody pitches a new series. I'm looking for something that's good, something that is going to like tickle whatever that weird thing is in my brain that says this comic is good. Because my general philosophy is, if I think a comic is good, someone will want to read it, and most of the time that has been true. So I keep going by that general philosophy. But what is good can be anything across a wide variety of different types of genres and art styles and storytelling. And I want to expand more and more of that we're doing, of the types of stuff we're doing, and really and push the edge of what like graphic storytelling is, getting into other mediums, getting into light novels, that sort of thing. And this year will be the kind of the first baby steps that you'll see of that, which means you'll have this year we have everything from extreme horror comics to psychological thriller, all the way down to kids books. We probably have more kids books this year than we've ever had before, with carriers. With later this spring in our free comic book day issue, Bjorn the Lidless Viking, which if you were ever a fan of Bone would be right up your alley, and the return of Dragon Whisperer with Dragon Whisperer Volume 2. But we're also going to be pushing into, I'm trying to think of the right way to describe it, sort of like avant-garde science fiction with Mystery Brothers. That'll be coming out later this year. We'll be doing a Western. Not the first time, we've done one Western before, but this one's it was sort of a zombie Western. This one's just a straightforward as a Western can get. Lead City. This year we'll be rolling into some pulp fiction. Yes, Lead City coming out in March. Check it out now. It is great.
Yeah,
great artist.
You sent me the photo. I was just waiting for you to talk about it because I want to talk about it.
I'm trying to remember how many I sent, but I definitely want to talk about it. Before I say that, we'll be having August, which is a fantastic sci-fi series later this year that's coming to us from a great writer artist that I can't believe, that he's not already blown up into a giant superstar. He has it's really reminiscent of Stuart Immonen. He brought us a fantastic pulp series that we're going to be doing in 2023 called We Are Scarlet Twilight. And then in the meantime, he's like, oh, and I have this completely finished sci-fi comic. You want that? I'm like, yes, it's great. All your stuff is great. So we'll do that too. I can't wait for you to check that out. And then we're going to be doing our first, I don't want to call it sword and sorcery, but it starts out sort of knights versus zombies, but actually takes a hardcore turn into horror and magic with the fantasy feel. Very much sort of a medieval Mike Mignola feel from a writer artist in Montreal, and the book's called Dead Kingdom. That'll be coming out this fall, and just in time for Halloween. I can't wait for people to take a look at that as well. And then towards the end of the year, Atonement Bell by our Butcher Queen creator Jim Owsley, which he's called like the best, something he's been working on for a while, a script he's had for a while, and the best work he's done. So I'm excited for people to see that. So it's going to be a little bit.
No, yeah, there is just a little bit of everything, and I love the pitch of high fantasy horror, knights versus zombies kind of, feel. Like, I love that kind of concept. So is there, because you've got a little from column A, a little from column B, a little from column C, like really the whole spectrum of things here, is there a type of book that you try to avoid? Is there or is there something that if you get it, immediately it's not for you?
Yeah, there's probably a few types. Generally, you're not going to see much in the way of superheroes or things that push into that too much. I mean, we've had some books that flirt with it to one degree or another, but you will probably never see like a straightforward, straight out superhero books. There's lots of people who are doing that, and that's probably, so that's something like a long time ago we made like a direct decision that we weren't really going to get into that, and we'll just leave that by, unless some sort of really great hook that's different from anything anyone's ever done. But I haven't heard one yet, so you usually won't see one of those.
Interesting. I always find it interesting when you find a publisher that, like yourself, and there's a few others, that the spectrum of comics just is so wide of what they do, and usually they don't do superheroes.
Yeah.
And usually it's for that very reason. There's so many other people who do, just let them do what they do and let us focus on something else. Yeah. So you sent me the image for Lead City, which is a killer image, by the way. Like, I really do dig kind of the, that black and white and gray with some blue tones in there kind of feel.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just another Western ghost town, except for one day a year when it fills with the worst gunslingers in the West, looking to settle old scores. Yeah,
it is a great concept, and the whole book looks. I mean, part of it was the art grabbed me. I mean, the whole book looks like that. Kyle Brumman, who's drawing it, does. He's another one of those, like, I can't believe he doesn't have like an A-list title that he's drawing for one of the large companies, because everything he's doing is so good. And then I read it, and you always hope that when you see like a really good book, it's a really good read too. And this was that. You have this. You have these paired cities, Lead City, which is kind of a ghost town, and then the settlement nearby. And nobody goes into Lead City. We have this our unfortunate homesteader, Coleman Cooper, who is traveling across the Old West with his family in a wagon. Heading toward land that they've been promised by the government that they're going to settle. But his wife becomes very sick, and he needs medicine. He needs a doctor. He doesn't know if she's going to make it. So they stop in the first town they come to, which turns out to be Lead City. And he's wondering around, why is this empty? Why isn't anyone here? There's like a 2 or 3 people, and everyone's telling him, you need to get out. You don't want to be here. You can't be here. It's going to be bad if you're hearing. He's like, I don't have any choice. I need you to send me your doctor. And then before he knows it, all of these, terrible bank robbers and gunslingers and the worst outlaws of the West begin pouring into the town. And he discovers that once a year they have a tournament, and they start shooting it out with each other to see who's the top draw, who's the top dog, and the winner is a chest full of money, which he realizes he needs in order to pay for the doctor to save his wife. So he enters himself into this contest with the not being a particular hand with a gun, but he's like, I don't have any choice. And then it starts to take some real twists and turns from there, and you will be very surprised where it comes out to as the contest goes on.
I'm just going to let that sit for a minute, because now I'm really excited.
No,
I watched Tombstone last night.
Yeah.
So in my head, I'm hearing the music from Tombstone, and I'm kind of I'm picturing the book, and I'm very excited.
Yep. Tombstone, Quick and the Dead, a lot of like yeah, movies like that, that's like a perfect headspace to be in for Lead City. I can't wait for people to see it.
So you mentioned a bunch of other titles for this year. Um, is there anything else that sticks out to you as something that, hey, look, I can't tell you too much about this, but go ahead and put it on your pull list now, because when it comes out in August or September or whatever, you, you're going to want to be ahead of the curve on?
There are a couple of them. The one I want to say the most about is actually probably the furthest out, and
The one
that's
you can't say anything about, right?
it's that I can say a little bit of stuff about it, but
All right.
it's not going to be here until 2023. So I'm going to have to like pop back up and keep reminding people because we're so far out from it. We're going to have to
Right.
keep reminding people it's this, but just write down like the 4 words: "We are Scarlet Twilight," and don't forget those words. You are going to want to be in on "We Are Scarlet Twilight" from the beginning.
I'm writing it down.
All right.
Um,
So it's like if
so
somebody, I don't know
Mhm.
if anybody was like a big reader of Mark Schultz or Zip Tales or anything like that back in the day when that was coming out once a year or so from Kitchen Sink. But it, it'd be like if somebody went to you and was telling you to, you're like, no, this is going to be great. Or telling you The Rocketeer before like the first issue of Pacific Presents came out. Like you're gonna know this like 6-page story in Pacific Presents. This is going to be a big deal. The Rocketeer, you're gonna want that. We Are Scarlet Twilight. You are going to want to pay attention to. It's going to be great when it gets here in like 10, 14 months. Um, there's lots of great stuff in between it, like Dead Kingdom. I know I talked a lot about it already, but for this year, definitely keep your eye on Dead Kingdom and Atonement Bell.
so you mentioned light novels and you mentioned young adult or kids books. Um, is and pardon me if I'm wrong, but that's not something that has been a big part of the Red 5 kind of MO thus far. I mean, there have been some that have been kind
Yeah.
of more all ages or, more open, but is that a direction you're heading? Is that a course you're
Yeah.
setting for yourself?
It hasn't been as much as I would like it to be, but it's definitely a direction we need to go in. And it's like a conscious choice to both add that to the catalog and have it be and continue, not just, whenever something shows up, but to continually be on the lookout for those types of books and always have those kinds of books in the catalog. I've been getting in art for Bjorn, the Littlest Viking, for about a year. And we've been posting some of it on our social channels and out to Comics News for probably about 6 months or so. But even then, it's just sort of the tip of the iceberg. I can't wait for people to see Bjorn, the Littlest Viking. It is everything you would want from an all age title for a kids title. It's Calvin and Hobbes with a Viking, or Bone with a Viking and a ghost instead of whatever the bones were supposed to be. It is. I'm super excited for that, and along with it is something that's actually going to be we picked up primarily for the book market because we took a turn also in 2021 and will be even more so of pushing a lot of material for it'll still come out in comic stores, but pushing a lot of material for the book market. We signed a book distribution deal with Simon and Schuster's, and we're working with them to looking for a lot of what bookstores and libraries are looking for and coming out with more material designed for that. And one of the ones that I've been watching this get finished for about 4 years, and it's finally done a young adult kind of it's kind of on the borderline between kids and young adult fantasy action series called Nyx that started life as a webtoon series, but has now finally been finished. And to see the whole thing, we'll be publishing it in under one cover directly as an OGN, as a graphic novel that'll be coming out this summer. And I can't wait for people to see Nyx. And that, between looking at stuff like Bjorn and Nyx and some of the material that we're looking to add over the next year or so that we're vetting right now, that's definitely going to be more and more of that in a direction that we're definitely going towards.
So you just said what a bunch of people in the comic industry are kind of hinting around and dancing around and trying to figure out: book market and Webtoon.
Yeah.
So the book market is rapidly becoming this immovable object,
Mhm.
undeniable force in our industry, and it's changing the way everybody has to approach everything.
Mhm.
And you mentioned that it's a direction you're definitely turning toward. And you also mentioned Webtoon, which is one of the fastest growing platforms for creatives. Um, how has looking at those two uh, very disparate kind of things kind of influenced and informed what the decisions you're making?
It tells me where where the readership of the future is growing and the types of, or at least as I think about when I look at them, and what types of stories they're going to be looking at. There's lots of stuff that I grew up reading that I like, and that touches back onto superheroes and a lot of stuff that's very good and that has lots of time of kinds of readers for it who are probably readers in my demographic who have grown up reading comics and are still looking for a lot of the same stuff that I enjoy reading. But we hear a lot of the time, like, what is the comic market going to be like, especially post pandemic, what's that's doing to retail stores, what's that's doing to publishers, especially small publishers. Um, is it growing? Is it shrinking? Is there going to be a future? And my view has been like, it's like the actual comic audience isn't disappearing. It's just that A, it's becoming a different audience, and B, they're getting their material in different ways. So where can I fill that gap in as a publisher? Lots of different people have looked at things like the Webtoons model and trying to figure out how to monetize digital comics, and that's a tough one. And I don't know if you necessarily want to be competing all the time in over channel, but the my view and my hope, but I think it's right. Like, there will always be a segment of the readership that physical media is going to be the thing. And that's still probably the largest segment. There's still more people who want a physical thing that they can own than are just like, well, I'll read it once for free on the internet and I'll move on. I mean, that's a big part of the readership, but it's a part of it. So when I look at what the book market is looking for, which is young adult, girls and women oriented, a lot of manga. When I look at what's taking off on Webtoons, which is in a lot of similar space. I'm looking at, all right, there's a readership here that is a readership that hasn't really been embraced as the primary readership for comics for a long time, but is becoming that. This is what our readership isn't shrinking. It's just our old demographics are shrinking and moving away and getting replaced by a new demographic. And we've got to have material that group wants, because that's who our reader of the future is going to be. And we've got to let them know that there is material that they want outside of either outside of Webtoons and bookstores and things like that can come to comic stores and get it, or if they're not going to change their buying habits, to put material that they want into the places where they'll read it, especially the book market.
Have you found that to be a unique challenge
Yes.
of kind of cracking that book market thing?
Yes.
I wonder why more people don't do it, and I wonder if you maybe have some insight onto that.
For a long time, it took, even for, I think it took and we're not the only ones going in this direction, but the right synchronicity of elements on the publisher side, but also elements on the distribution side, where we are looking to crack the book market and looking to provide material that is probably more directly suited for a book buyer than necessarily someone who's going to come into a comic shop. It's one reason why Nix is put out as an OGN and primarily packaged for the book market, because I don't know what it would do. I think it would do okay, in your kind of classic floppy sense, but I think it's much better just as a book and published to that market. And then I think it will also be good support for comic stores as well, especially those who are carrying more and more basically what Scholastic and Random House graphics out those kinds of what we may not have once have considered graphic novels, but are definitely graphic novels aimed directly at like a juvenile readership and a young adult readership, which is growing, and being able to aim at that. The real change came when you started to find more and more of the book distributors realizing they wanted to be in that business too. And, they kind of were turned an eye to a lot of the potential for the comic business. They would, work with the biggest dogs like Marvel and DC, but outside of that, they're like, well, it's X small percent of readership, why bother? But as there's been a lot of growth in book sales, and especially with the growth in manga in bookstores, you started to see them realizing, no, there's real money to be made there. And I think the real turning point was when Scholastic started up their graphic novel division, and First Second got created, and Random House Graphics got created, and you saw the big book companies going, we're going to jump into this with both feet, and going, we're not both with our homegrown stuff that we own, but we're also going to be looking to actually distribute into the bookstores but we're going to start having conversations with we're realizing there are a lot of publishers out there that have material that we can work with and that booksellers want, and we should be taking up that pie rather than ignoring it and waiting for somebody else to do it. And once they were wanted to have those conversations, it really, you got to the point where, and that's really only been over the last year and a half or so, you get to the point where like both sides could meet, and now we can do something.
Yeah. I was selling manga. I mean, I sold manga for 10 years and nobody else in town would touch it. And then in the last year in my store, everybody wanted it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a definite trend that publishers like yourself are going to benefit from taking advantage of. And I think that's good for the consumer because it keeps the innovation level high, right? It
Mm-hmm.
forces you to look at story differently and keeps the level of creativity high
Mm-hmm.
in terms of figuring out narrative storytelling, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to modify Joey's question a little bit. We've all heard about paper and ink shortages, and we kind of talked about that a little bit already. Do you think that these new directions you're going and these new tactics you're taking, how do you suppose those are going to set you up or position you in the market against some of the supply chain and other issues we're having?
They're kind of the moves that, and this was more synchronicity than anything else, because we were doing this already before a lot of the supply chain issues set in, but they're kind of what you have to do. Because the main issue with supply chain is either prices have to go up to ensure that material is coming out on a timely basis because of just the cost of getting it, that the last marginal piece of paper or whatnot from a printer has gotten so high here, and especially in North America, or more likely there's a waiting list that you can't do anything about and you're waiting. It has not so much imperiled the creation of books, but it has made it very difficult for the timely delivery of books. So within a compressed time frame, one of the benefits, and that really hits a serial market where all the economics and all the storytelling and all the audience expectation is built around having this hit is going to come every month, that I'm going to get my issue of this book every month on time, and then whenever it stops I'll be done, or if it's ongoing I'll keep getting it every month. And that's probably been the thing that supply chain has hit the most, is that it's very difficult to do that. Even if you set up far in advance, you still don't know exactly what, by the time it's time for stuff to hit stands, and it starts to become very difficult to ensure that monthly material is going to arrive monthly, because so much of the chain is out of your hands. Whereas when you're moving more towards the book market, you're talking about something that's going to come out. It's going to come out in one big bulk once a year. It'll for whatever your first printing is, and maybe if it sells really well, another printing of it will come out next year, or maybe it'll just be that one printing it. But you can plan for that far in advance. I mean, right now we're planning for bookstore material for 2023 because it works much further in advance. So even though supply chain issues hit that, you have a lot of leeway and runway room just from how far in advance you're telling people a book's going to arrive to actually try to schedule things and get things moving that you're able to get there in advance, and you're not having to try to do it one thing after another for each series. Like, if everything turned into graphic novels, I'd be putting out just 12 graphic novels next year, not 12 series with 4 pieces each. And it's a much more complicated logistical problem to get 48 discrete individual products into distribution on time, month by month, versus like 12 individual discrete products. You can plan for that far in advance. If this continues, maybe it speeds up the move towards all books and not necessarily like turning away from the direct market, but treating the direct market as an extension of the book market, and it's all books, and moving away from. I mean, we moved away from mostly from the serial monthly book every year, because most of us are having to focus on 4-issue sort of miniseries pieces. A series here is 4 issues, a series there is 4 issues, because that's about what is economic. So we're not trying to keep one thing going month after month after month, year after year after year. And maybe this kind of pushes further to you're going to get one big hit of this thing. It's going to come at you all at once, because I can ensure that it will get there. Because I'm going to plan for it a year out and print it a year out, and it's going to be there. And I don't have to try to keep that up for 4 or 5 months straight. And we're heading in that now. That's a lot of economics are heading that direction. The reason we haven't gone entirely that way, because people have been predicting us moving to a trade-only market for at least 20 years. Definitely for longer than Red 5's been around. That hasn't happened because there's still a significant segment of the market that wants the quick hit of the monthly serial rather than have to wait. Like nobody would really, even though we've been doing it as long as people have been reading, especially as comic readers, and I'm as bad as anyone wants to wait. All right, I'm going to wait 18 months to get my new Spider-Man or my new Hellboy or whatever, and then I'm going to wait another. I'm going to read it. It's like waiting for your new Netflix series to drop. I can't wait for the new season of Cobra Kai. I watched it all in 5 hours. Now I have to wait 12 months to get more of it. And as comic readers, we haven't really been trained for that, so it's hard to. People don't really want to switch over to that. They will if they have to. So it's kept the serial system working, and there's a lot of good reasons for that. There's a lot of benefit to being able to, as a publisher, and I'm sure as a retailer, to have new material coming out every month, and being able to sell that and turn it over, and not just having. Versus, all right, we got the new book out and it was a hit, but we've taken in all that we're going to for that for now, or it's going to be 12 or 18 months before we have the next volume out and get like another big hit. So we got to stretch it out. It's really nice to be able to have new material coming out every month.
And that's the thing about the manga market, right? Is that even in the manga market, you have to be quarterly or even on the halve, to maintain interest. So it'll be interesting to see as we head this direction what that looks like from publishers that have been traditionally comic.
Yeah.
So I want to come back to this 15th anniversary thing, because I think it's worth mentioning that at 15 years you're one of the longest running independent publishers in that sector of the market, right? Like Image has been around longer, but there aren't a ton.
No. I guess depending on how you define indie, Dark Horse has just been bought. I mean, it's been bought by venture capital money. I don't know if that means indie anymore.
I mean, largely creator-owned.
Yeah.
Guys who are out there hustling, not the big five.
Right.
So I guess my question is, 15 years in, looking at 15 years from now, where do you see Red 5? Not where do you see the industry, because I think trying to look at that is folly, but if you were going to plot the future for the company,
Mhm.
where do you see Red 5 in 15 years from now?
I see us as the biggest of the small indies, which is like the Big Little, not into the top 5, but multiple times larger than it is right now, and branched out into many more different product types. So still doing comics, but doing a lot of manga, doing a lot of art books, doing light novels. Um, maybe actually definitely starting to move directly into publishing actual regular prose fiction intended for the book market, and much larger than it is now. Never far away, never entirely far away from where we started, but definitely adding new facets. Yeah.
All right. So I like to ask everyone questions they can't have possibly be prepared for.
Okay.
It's my favorite thing. And the question I'm going to ask you is this. If you're stuck on a desert island with the professor and Marianne, so you have electricity.
Okay.
You can have one book, one movie, and one record. What book, what movie, and what record are you taking to the island with you?
All right. Book is going to be Watership Down, because it's the single book I've read the most times, and I know that I can reread it over and over and get as much enjoyment out of it every time I read it, no matter how many times I read it. Movies a tougher one. My go-to has usually been Star Wars, for the same reason. There's probably a couple in there, because I might say Casablanca, but probably Star Wars, just for the same reason, because you're going to be there forever. You're gonna either get tired or not get tired of it, and you're gonna try to find something that you don't think you can get tired of. That's all you're gonna have. What record? Now the record one's gonna be a really tough one. Probably, I'm gonna say probably Revolver by the Beatles. Yeah.
It's a good choice. It's a strong choice.
Yeah. Something I can listen to over and over. Yeah.
It's true. Like my movie and my record are the same, so I have to figure that one out. Because my movie is the Blues Brothers, because I can watch it over and over and over again. But my record is also the Blues Brothers, because I can listen to it over and over and over again.
Yeah.
So I've got to figure out how to differentiate that one. Where can people go online to support Red 5? Where can they follow you? Where can they get more information about the books and the titles that are coming out this year? Especially with just the giant slate of stuff you're planning.
Come to the website, red5comics.com. It's updated regularly, so you'll always see the new books, the books that are on order now, the books that are available for purchase now, and a lot of the most recent news of books that we've announced and when they're going to be available. You can also follow Red 5 Comics on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, at Red 5 Comics on Twitter, at Red 5 Comics on Instagram. Then you can look for me individually. 90% of my social is also Red 5 Comics material. So you can find me on Facebook. Look for at Josh Starnes Film on Twitter, and at JB Starnes1 on Instagram. And you will usually see a lot of the first updates for new pages of art and new books and announcements for new books coming out of either the Red 5 social or mine, and probably both.
All right. And if you're out there watching and you're going, I don't know, I need to pick up some Red 5 books, Miss Jen has them. Mm-hmm. She always has them. I love your distribution system to Miss Jen's store, which is just you show up
over there
and the book you're in, and then it's usually, hey, you need to come on this live show that I'm doing right now, because she's always doing a live show.
Mm-hmm.
And that's usually how I find out about books that somehow have slipped my radar. I'm going, hey Jen, can you just sign me up for all of them? Thanks. So that's always super fun. And I love that kind of level of personal attention when publishers give that to somebody. So big ups on that. So let's remind everybody, red5comics.com. There's a link in the comments and on social media. Thank you, Josh, for being here. This has been great. You're one that's been on every one of these things that we've done.
All right.
Because
You guys speak a
Red
lot.
5, because Red 5 always has killer stuff that we want people to know about and we want people to take advantage of. And so I would say keep up the good work, but that feels weird. So thank you for being awesome and providing all this great content in these great comics.
Thanks for having me.
So absolutely. We'll be back tomorrow, guys, with 2 new interviews here as part of the Exp Expo 2022, the one with all the 2s. And we will see you then. For Josh, I've been Kyle, and we'll see you tomorrow.